Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Story Darlings podcast. I'm Sandra.
And I'm Tera.
And what are we talking about today, Tera?
We are starting our read-through of the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. So, yay!
Woohoo! And it also happens to be Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day. It's the perfect timing because we get to kick off our series read-along just in time for Pharaoh Feb, Fantasy Romance February. And we're so happy that you're joining us on this read-along.
So to kick it off, we are going to go on a speed journey through the chapters 1 through 26, lightning round to give you a little bit of a recap of everything. And I'm going to make Sandra do that because, well, she's read it a few times.
Ooh, no pressure. Chapter 1, we meet 18-year-old Celaena Sardothien, and she is kind of a badass, isn't she, Tera?
Yes. And her name is kind of badass too, Sardothien. It sounds like Game of Thrones-y.
Yeah, it does. And she is quite the strong character. We're pretty much dropped right into her head, and we get all of her internal dialogue, and she's imagining all the ways of escaping as she goes through this little tour of the building being led.
By escaping, Sandra means murdering. Just murdering the shit out of everybody that comes in her path. That's the, escaping she wants to do.
Yes. So some background of Celaena. She has been a slave in these mines of Endovir, salt mines, for the past year. And we learn in chapter 2 or 3 or chapter 2 that the average lifespan of someone working in the salt mines is about a month. So it takes quite the strong-willed, maybe ruthless, brutal person to be able, just a strong will-powered person to be able to withstand the salt mines for that long.
Well, and we also learn that it's not just her that she is relying on in those salt mines. She is where normal people stay to themselves and die on their own. She has found a group of people that she can pull together, and she can help them and they can help her. So I think that might be why she has lasted longer, because she has not just relied on herself, but she has protected other people and had other people protect her.
Yes. So we get the sense that she has been through a lot to have ended up in the salt mines, and we haven't really learned about why that is, what the full backstory is there. But as Tera said, it has been her knack for caring about people that has helped her get through that, even though circumstances in the salt mines are pretty terrible. So chapter 1, we meet her. She's going through the building because she has been summoned to the Crown Prince's hall, or whatever you want to call it, where he sees guests. But she's dirty, filthy, chained up. She's skinny because she hasn't been eating well. She hasn't seen the sun in forever. And she is she's very resentful about the Empire and bitter, we get the sense of. She's imagining all the ways that she could kill this Captain Chaol Westfall as he's leading her to the Crown Prince, and how she could escape, and just kind of questioning the intelligence of everyone there, because she's learning the layout of the building. And that is chapter 1.
Because he tries his hardest to throw her off. And so she even remarks that, he's stupid because he thinks that by taking her up the same hole and then back down and then up it again, he's throwing her off. But she's like, I could get out of here. No problem.
Yeah. She's like, keep showing me the building. She's like, you're basically giving me practice sessions on the directions and where to go. I'm committing this to memory even better now. Thank you.
It's super nice of him.
Yeah, super nice of he's so accommodating, that Captain Westfall. So chapter 2, it's the eyes lock moment. She's in the makeshift throne room of this place in Endovir, and she meets the handsome, dark-haired, blue-eyed Crown Prince. Yes, Crown Prince Dorian. And he is what you would picture a Crown Prince to be. He has kind of this flirtatious playboy attitude and way, swagger, just way of carrying himself. And he basically has a conversation with Celaena about her experience in the salt mines. And do you remember what her experience in the salt mines were? Why he's selected her to talk to her about this proposal that he has.
Well, I don't know exactly what your right answer here is, but is this that she murdered people in the salt mines? Okay, just wanted to make sure I wasn't ahead a chapter. So, um, so we learned that shortly after her arrival, Celaena goes on a murdering spree. Um,
4 months after.
yeah,
Yeah.
and she murders her like I took him to be like the guard of the place that she was in. Um,
The
yeah.
overseer. Hmm.
And so she murders him, but also then starts to do her escape. And like I mentioned earlier, her escape means murdering everybody in her path. And so she also took down a number of the other kind of guards in the palace and almost made it to the wall to escape. Or not the palace, the salt mines. Almost made it to the wall to escape, which has never happened. And
No.
the guards have been trained to basically kill the person before they even step foot out onto the path to the wall. So for her almost making it to the wall, that's just unheard of.
As Tara mentioned, anyone that even thinks about it or attempts to escape, they're literally killed within like 3 yards or something
Hmm.
stupid, if that. Like they're just, I'm just picturing the worst prison possible, and it's just flooded with tons of guards, and they're just
But
ruthless.
also, you have to go back to what we were saying about her being a badass, because I have a feeling that all these other people that may have tried to escape were kind of in the same physical shape as she was, but didn't have the training and the things that you know later on that she has had to like help her. So it makes
Yes.
sense that nobody's made it very far because they're all starving, they're all like ready to die. It wouldn't take much for a guard to kill them.
I think it's mentioned that she was the king, the assassin king's like apprentice,
Hmm.
essentially, at some point, and so that explains a lot of her skill with being able, being sneaky and stealthy, and her weapons expertise and that kind of thing, and just her attitude. She's a very, very confident person in her
Hmm.
abilities, like she's basically been trained since she was a child for almost a decade in the arts of just murder. And
Assassinry.
yeah, she's quite proud of that. And it's because of all of this and some stuff that is alluded to that we don't really know the full story on yet, that she gets landed into this death sentence of a place, the salt mines. And because she has a little bloodbath 4 months in, tries to escape, the prince approaches her and makes a proposal to her. And what is this opportunity?
So she can compete to be the champion of the king, which is basically the assassin of the king of Otterlin. That's how you said it?
Yeah.
Okay, I messed it up right before we got on here. Otterlin. And so she would basically be working for the king. And the original proposal was she had to work for him for 5 years as his assassin, and then she would get free. And she talked Dorian down to 4 years, I believe, is what they ended on. Because she wanted 3 years, and I think he countered with a 4 years. So she has to, if she wins the competition, she has to work for the king for 4 years as his assassin, doing whatever and murdering whoever he says.
No
No
questions
questions
asked. Yeah.
asked. And then she could possibly have her freedom, which I'm kind of iffy on. Like, they don't sound like they're like stand up people that are going to, you know, really do what they say. But what other choice
Yeah.
does she have? She stays in the salt mines and dies within a year or two, or she takes his proposal and a shot at
Yeah.
freedom at least.
Yeah. It's all very suspicious.
Hmm.
You're like, what is this king's motivations? Is he a good person? Does he have noble reasons for wanting an assassin?
Well,
Yeah.
I doubt it because, like, what noble reasons are there for wanting an assassin? But I do like Dorian, so that's where I'm like having like I believe Dorian, but his father's the king and not he's not really in charge. So anything he says, I have like a grain of salt.
So Dorian meets with Celaena, and Chaol is just basically standing there as a handsome statue beside her, making sure she doesn't pull any funny
I
business.
also envision him giving her looks like you're stupid. go
Oh,
away.
yeah.
Like,
He has a lot of attitude.
mm.
Mhm.
That's what I envisioned the whole
And he's
time from him.
yeah, he's also supposed to be like, she's 18 and Chaol is supposed to be 22 and made captain of this entire guard
Mhm.
at 20, which is like, okay, there wasn't an older person that could have been, but I mean, I it's geared towards a younger crowd, the book, so I understand
Well,
making a 20-year-old
but we
captain.
do
But
find out that
yeah.
he's a good friend of Dorian too. So I also think that there was some like
Yeah,
nepotism, well, not really nepotism, but you know what I'm saying. Like he was in that role
they grew up
probably
together.
because he had some
Yeah.
connections.
They do say that they grew up together. So Dorian and Chaol have known each other their whole life. Celaena makes a guess that Chaol is of, kind of uppity, highborn class
Well,
status as
the
well.
way he's looking at her and talking to her, like that doesn't take a genius. He
A little
thinks he's better
snobby.
than she is, which I mean, most of that comes from assassinry.
Yeah. He has a very black and white view of the world. Like, oh, you're in this place, you must be just a criminal and
Mhm.
you don't deserve any second thought whatsoever or any respect from me type of thing. And it'll be interesting and fun to see how that changes. But yeah, so after this talk with Dorian and she agrees to give 4 years, her next 4 years up. So by the time she's 22 to be out of the king's graces, if she can get her freedom. So then they travel to the Glass Palace, and it's a 2-week journey. They go through Oswald Forest or
Mhm.
something like that. They go through the forest. They're camping at night. She's still filthy, and there's a few like really kind of tender, sincere moments between her and the
There's
prince.
also some foreshadowing moments on this trip. Like,
Yes.
I caught a few things and I'm like, "Oh, wait. I think that that's gonna be important in the future." And I wrote them down.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd. I didn't wanna, like, put it in my book, but anyway, I'm a nerd. But there's a moment where the forest kind of talks to her or, like, the little people deliver stuff to her, and so I'm like, she's gonna be something with that. There's gotta be something, some reason that the forest is talking to her and that she feels the magic in it, and that the little creatures, which I think are fae, little fae creatures,
Yes.
um,
Are
because she said that there
they're
were,
referred to as like
yeah, there were little
yeah.
footprints that led up to flowers or something
So
at her bed,
mhm.
and so I have a feeling we're gonna see more of the little fae creature later on in connection to her. But then there was also the moment of them telling, or somebody telling the story, her thinking the story, I don't remember, but the story of Terrason and the way she connected to that story. And it's her hometown, but the way she connected to that, or her home country,
Yeah.
I feel like she was something in there. Those were my
Yeah.
foreshadowing moments. Sorry, guys.
No, those I love those moments. And there was a moment when she was sleeping or Dorian thinks she's
Hmm.
sleeping and he's just looking at her and it was almost like a magical, like a cheesy romantic moment because she seemed like so a part of like the night sky and just
Hmm.
everything around her. And she seems like so sad.
And he even
Yeah.
comments, or there's a comment about the stars look like they're looking at her and not her looking at the stars, which was
Yeah.
super cute.
Good foreshadowing. It's one of those moments like as you read the rest of the series, Tara, you're just gonna be like, oh my god, this
It
was like
makes so
so
much
beautiful.
sense.
Like chef's kiss. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it was so cute for him to be thinking that too. Like you can tell that he's a better person than you're getting an image of his father. And so you're rooting for
Yeah.
him to actually live up to that as opposed to being his father's son. Or at least I
Yeah.
was. Because I want him to be a
Yeah.
good guy and I'm not shipping him yet
Here
because I'm
there's one.
holding out. I'm holding out on that because I don't want him to be the villain. I don't want him to be like his father. So I'm holding out, but that line was super cute.
He just channels that flippant, reluctant prince kind of mentality, and I'm like all about it.
I'm gonna say it. This is probably no little kids, hopefully. BDE energy, like He seems to have that, so.
Oh boy. Man, Tara, you are in for a treat. Okay. I'm not confirming or denying anything, but moving along, it's getting a little hot in here. Even after reading the entire series, years later, I am still in Camp Dorian. I love Dorian. Like, you will never be able to change that. I love Dorian. One of my top Sarah J Maas men.
I also like Chaol, though, because he's got the gruffy snark. Like, if you combined those two into one person, that would be, like, hardcore for me. Because they're both a
I
little bit
mean, that's
snarky.
not a surprise. You like
I
snark.
do. They're both a little snarky. The prince is a prince. I mean, who doesn't want a prince? And Chaol's, like, just a little more serious, a little more, like, gruff.
He takes his job a little too seriously, and he needs to learn to like loosen up, and it'll be fun to see what a loosed up kind of Chaol is like.
That will be fun.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I like both of them. I at this point, I don't know which one I want her to end up with.
Chapter 5. Celaena, we learned that the person that she came into when she was 8, we know that she was found in a frozen river, like abandoned as a 8-year-old child. She didn't look like she was in great condition at all, physically, mentally, emotionally. But she was found by the king of assassins, Erben Hamal. And I'm probably butchering that pronunciation now that I gave Tara crap about saying stuff wrong. And so he basically exploits her, right? And is like, "Oh, I will train you up to be the baddest, like baddest assassin if you are work in my employ." And she agrees. She's a child. She doesn't know any better. She doesn't have any place to go. So if it's a roof overhead, a nice roof over her head,
And food.
and yeah, food, and she learns all of these different skills and how to survive, and not just survive but flourish. And this guy Arabelle is the king of Rifthold, is like the casual statement of it, because he basically runs this city in the empire. And it's just one of those cities you get the sense of is just a big city. There's a ton of people. It's a bit progressive, and it can be a little bit gritty, and criminal. There's a lot of criminal underworkings going on in the city. And so in her mind, she's like, "Hey, I'll do it." Little does she know that there's a price tag for accepting, his help.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically becomes enslaved to him. She takes on enormous debt, like 500,000 gold in debt, that she is expected to pay off to this man to ever be freed up and have her own freedom. So she, in essence, she starts out this book as a slave in the mines for things that happened previously, but then as a child, she's basically turned into a slave for this assassin's guild,
And then,
right?
like, the salt in the wound is
Yeah.
that she is then looked down upon for doing what she had to do to survive. So, like, I feel so sorry for her. Not only did she, 8 years old, have to make a decision of doing something that maybe she probably never would have done to survive, but then she's then punished for doing that. It's
Yeah.
much like our US right now. Like,
Yeah.
kids are
Sounds very familiar.
kids are
Yeah.
like having to do things to survive, and
Yeah.
then we look down upon them. And
Yeah, there's no empathy
mm-mm.
treated for them at all. Yeah, one of the critiques about this series is a lot of people found Celaena just very irritating as a character, because she's so strong-willed and stubborn and very cocky. Like, there's a lot of people calling her arrogant, but it's like, look, if you get brought into this environment when you're 8 years old and you work around people day in, day out, that are killers, that are ruthless, that are out for themselves, that are, serving up this guy that's basically exploiting them all, of course you're going to develop a thick skin and be, develop a type of way of carrying yourself that's going to put on a front to all of these people. That becomes kind of who you are. And so I'm like, is she arrogant? Okay, yeah, a little bit, but it's almost like a defense mechanism, right?
Well, and if she were a man exhibiting those same traits, would we be calling her arrogant? Because we're not calling Dorian arrogant or Kale arrogant, and they're exhibiting very similar traits.
That's a great point. Yeah.
But we're calling her arrogant because she's a woman who is in touch with her badassness. and not a man. Like, I mean, go through history. All of the men that have been through history that have been arrogant, had these same traits, are not known as arrogant. They're known as kings
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
rulers and emperors and
Military leaders
military
like
leaders
Chaol. Mm-hmm.
and all of these things. So, like, eh.
Yeah. So maybe it's a little bit of internalized misogyny, huh? In people thinking that. It's a lot of women too. Yeah. So we get this backstory on her time in Rifthold growing up under this king of assassins. And we don't get the full story yet on how she ended up in the river, you know, or where this river was exactly. We just know that while she was under the assassin's employ, she was never allowed to return home. And we find out that her home is called what?
Terracin. I like that because that's my
Tara's not
name. And
biased.
so obviously that's the best place in this continent that we've got going on right now.
No bias whatsoever
Nope.
from Tera.
Not at all.
And then we also learn that in this whole continent, world, whatever you want to call it, of Aurelia, that magic used to permeate everything. But now there's no magic. Magic has been outlawed by the king, Dorian's father.
He just sounds like a douche.
Yeah,
I'm
he
sorry.
does. The
He
more,
doesn't
yeah,
he
the more
doesn't
we
like
talk about
people to
him.
do anything that he doesn't want to. Like, I'm getting very Henry VIII vibes off of him. Like, I will kill you if I don't agree with you. Just does he kill his wives too? Because that would be really, really funny. If it was
I'm
like
not saying
based off of
anything.
Henry VIII and I just caught on.
He's just not a good person, and I'm not saying anything else. We just know that magic used to be everywhere. Now it's not. And it happened like 10 years ago or something, is when magic vanished. So there's a big question mark there.
And all the books, like this douchebag, had all of the books burned. All of them.
Who does that?
I know.
Evil people.
Evil people. That's who. I mean, look through history. Who has burned books? Hitler? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not that much of a historian, I guess, because that's the only one I can think of. I'm sure the other dictators did it too, though.
Book banning is kind of a version of that, a
Mhm.
less extreme. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Throne of Glass is a banned book, like in some district in Virginia. I'm like, okay.
Well, it does talk about magic. That is like not cool in
Yeah, as we learned from like Harry Potter, magic is like
the
witchcraft
devil.
is like bad. Yeah. So chapter 7, we finish the 2-week journey across the forest. There's moments shared between Dorian and her. We find out a little bit more about Celaena's backstory. So now we are at the stone castle. Well, the bottom part is stone, the top part is glass, which
Seems kind of odd.
yeah.
I mean, it seems like it probably would be very pretty, but also kind of dangerous. I don't think that that's very fortified. Like, what kind of glass are you making this out of? And like, if it like gets hit by hail, are we like gonna die because there's shards of glass going everywhere? Like,
yeah, I'm just picturing like the gaudiest looking thing. Yeah.
and how does it look with a stone castle like in it? Like, I know it's beneath it, but like, you have to see that somewhere. There's some like something on the inside of that castle that you can like see right through, which would just be like weird looking to me. But hey.
I'm picturing like an ancient stone
Mhm.
ruin almost
Yeah.
that's partially hidden.
And then like going back to like Dorian's dad being like a douchebag, like he lives in a fucking glass house and he's throwing all kinds of stones.
They get to the stone castle, and Dorian goes to meet with his father, the king. And I'm guessing it's because the king wants to tell him more about this little champions contest that he has going on and some rules or guidelines about his interactions with Celaena and that sort of thing. And then on the other hand, we get Celaena, who gets taken to her bedroom where she will be staying for the duration of this contest. And she gets her own handmaiden, essentially, like a little servant,
Mhm.
Philippa. She just feels like she's won the lottery after the past 12 months in the salt mines, and she just can't believe her good luck. She has like a music and gaming room with a pianoforte in her room, and a dressing room, and a little dining room, and a beautiful big soft bed. And she's,
And actual clothes.
yeah. clothes that will be tailored to her. So even though she's a little bit scrawny, how they keep saying in the books, like bony, get some meat on her bones. But yeah, so that's basically that chapter. And then I think we do get Dorian's point of view while he's meeting with the king. I like that we get to see his point of view. And the king is basically warning him away from Celaena, like, don't get too close to her. She's an assassin, blah, blah, blah. You know, that whole spiel. And Dorian's just like, Dorian.
Like,
Like,
okay,
okay, whatever. Oh, thanks, Dad.
I'll do what
Pat
I
said.
want.
Yeah.
And I think it was in the last scene because she spends her first night in her room, right? And this hit me so hard because when she wakes up, Chaol's there and he asks her why she's sleeping on the floor because the bed was uncomfortable. It was too soft. It was like not what she was used to. And that hit me because I'm like, even before she went in to those salt mines, her life was just crap. Like,
Yeah.
never did she have a good life. Even when she was living with the King of Assassins in a nice house or whatever, it was never comfortable.
Yeah. It wasn't home, you know.
And that just made me feel for her because she chose to sleep on the floor because she wasn't comfortable.
There's definitely a sense of loneliness and not belonging, which, speaking of
Get a little bit of
yeah, he's starting to
mellow.
His rigid structure is starting to crumble just a little bit, like soften just a smidge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Chaol doing what Chaol does best. He takes our favorite assassin on another tour. Just call him tour guide Chaol. And this time it's of the palace.
But I don't think this time he walked her around like the way he did before. I think he just like took her on a tour. Like, I didn't get the sense that he was taking her in wrong directions to end up someplace.
No, it wasn't a misleading kind of tour meant to trick her or anything, but she does ask just questions for the sake of questions, like, oh, but what about this, so that he can show her like that part of the castle, and like, oh, what about this, and so she's like asking all these things to slyly get him to show her around more.
I also get the feeling that she was doing that somewhat to annoy the crap out of him because it seemed
I feel like he's going to be annoyed no matter
it
what.
seemed to me like she was like the little kid that's like, but why? But why? But why? But why? Just to annoy him. So I think some of those, like, she was slyly getting some answers out of him, but I think she also just really wanted to annoy him.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about that, like, their relationship seems more like brother and sister. Like, her just wanting to annoy him and him just like being annoyed by her.
That's a hot take.
That's
Yep.
gonna be weird if they end up together.
I definitely didn't get that vibe, but yeah, if you think about it, you could totally see it that way.
Yeah. And I didn't get that vibe until I said that she was trying to annoy him. And that's what you do to your brother, so.
So during the tour, Chaol is telling her about the family, the royal family. We learn that Dorian looks nothing like his parents. Like, absolutely does not resemble either of his parents. That's Sarah J Maas right there, sprinkling something in that we don't really know yet. Do you remember that part?
No, I'm dumb. I did not catch on to that.
He looks nothing like them. They don't know where he got these looks from. And also that he has a little brother that is basically the Joffrey from Game of Thrones, that little shit. And he's just cruel and evil, possibly. Like, he's just not a good kid. He tortures things, he gets people in trouble who are innocent, and he takes advantage of his power.
He's the spitting image of his dad.
Yes. And so we get the sense that, oh, you know, Dorian's little brother, which his name is Holland.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah. So he and Queen Georgina and the father are like kind of this picturesque family. They all look alike and probably are very much, you know, personality alike. And then Dorian's kind of the black sheep.
I want to believe the best in his mother because I didn't get any of the like Joffrey vibes off of her yet anyway. So I'm hoping that she is more like Dorian in personality.
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
We've yet to see that.
Yeah.
She just kind of strikes you as your stereotypical queen.
I mean, she has got some Cersei in her.
But Cersei was actually molding Jeffrey to be a certain way, like influencing him. Georgina seems very hands off and detached and just all about like the material and this facade and, you know, her looks and that kind of thing. Like her biggest priority is making sure Dorian picks a woman to be engaged with. So if I were Dorian, I'd be like mentally checked out too.
I did like her comment about like him having to get married and produce an heir, otherwise Holland gets to rule. And she's like, nobody wants that.
Yeah, so she realizes what a horrible child that is, which I can't remember how old he is
He's like
at this
10 or
point.
something. He's like very, very young
Yeah.
to be that like sociopathic. That's where I was like, I get maybe some better vibes off of her that she understands that a sociopathic ruler is not good.
It's almost like if the king is as bad as everyone is describing his as, it's like, well, if you were married to his ass, you would probably just, I don't know, become the same way too, maybe. I have an awful kid, an awful husband, and I have one prince that looks like no one in this family, but he is just what I'm going to focus on.
Well, and I mean, if he's that bad to everybody else, like it's been known that men are maybe a little worse with their wives than in public. So if he's that bad in
Yeah.
public, then what's he doing to his wife?
And then on this tour, they come to the library. And Celaena gets so excited. She's literally giddy and jumping with joy because she's so excited about
Hmm.
this library. And Chaol is Chaol and basically poo poos all over that because
He's
why?
like, you can't read these; they're only for these people. That's
Yeah.
that's where he comes up with his like all. Oh, you are highborn because books are only for highborn people.
Yeah, he's basically like, these are the prince's books. You can't read the prince's books. And she's like,
Watch me.
the wheels are turning in her head. Yeah, she's already plotting and scheming how she's going to get Dorian's approval to let her read these books. And we do get a fun little scene where she's written Dorian a letter beseeching him, like, hey, let me read your books, bro. And he writes her back. And it's probably one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't let her read the books from the library, though. He just sends her some books and he's like, hey, I've read these already. Why don't you give them a go and maybe we can talk about them? So he's setting himself up for getting future dates with her.
It's kind of like when you're courting someone or you're in the big early stages of dating them and you're like talking about all of your interests and stuff. And you're like, oh, you like to read? I like to read. And they're like, oh, well, these are my favorite books. So, like, you should read my books. So, you're basically reading the favorite books of whoever you've started dating to try and, I don't know, get a better understanding of them, be more in favor with them, I guess. It's kind of like that type of flirtation going on almost. And I don't know, I dig it.
There is a bit of a like a Beauty and the Beast theme there too, because she's kind of a prisoner of the castle. And he gave her books to like get her to open up to him. And she really has no other choice if she wants to read the books. Those are all she's got. So it's kind of like a captive
Yeah.
situation where he's setting it up that he still gets to be on her good side while holding her prisoner.
Yeah, she's basically in a beggars can't be choosers position and so desperate for any kind of entertainment and reading. She's like, fine, I'll do it. Like in her head, she's already saying, okay, I'll read these books and then I'll figure out a way to persuade him into letting me read whatever the hell I want to read is how her brain works. I don't know. I like that little library written letter back and forth kind of thing.
And then Kale, being Kale, got onto her because she is not in a position to be writing a letter to the prince.
Correct.
And I thought that was so funny because it's like, well, it's already happened. Like, what do you want to do about it now, dum dum?
Yeah.
But he took offense to her
Yeah.
arrogantness enough to write a letter to somebody else. Whew.
Heaven forbid.
Yeah.
But it's like it's during this tour we also see like little scenes of like her noticing like the clock tower and things like that, and she's meeting all of these ladies of the court that are just, you know, standing around socializing and looking pretty in their clothes and their dresses and stuff. She meets the lady Caltaine Rompier, and Caltaine is like who you would picture as like this beautiful lady at court, and she is a snob and she has her heart set on our Prince Dorian. And she immediately hates Celaena's guts because the rumor going around is that Celaena is a lover and having an affair with the Prince Dorian.
Caltaine does not give me smart vibes. She gives me very, like, dumb vibes.
She hasn't really stepped into her power. Like, she doesn't really know what it means to be a woman. So she's just kind of falling into this whole thinking of, oh, I'm going
We
to be
have
a
to be
beautiful
against
lady
each
at
other.
court. And I'm just, yes, you're my competition. And I just need to find a good husband to raise my status.
And I don't know if it was in this chapter or a later chapter, but, like, when Celaena confronts Dorian about that rumor, it got me because she's like, "I don't want to be rumored to be your lover because that means I'm dumb." Like, that's not what I want.
Yeah, I mean, the whole time she's walking around, anytime she has an interaction with a woman, they're just like, ugh, here's this slut again.
Mhm.
She's just sleeping with the crown prince. Well, that'll be over when he picks an actual wife, someone
Or
who's just,
just his next conquest. Like, it doesn't even have to be
yeah,
the actual wife. Like, they're like, he
yeah.
goes through them. She's not gonna stick around for long.
Yeah, there are a few exchanges between Chaol and Dorian where they're just like, okay, you dated this person and this person. This girl, Rosamond, broke your heart and married somebody else. And so it's basically confirmed that Dorian sleeps around. He's a playboy. He likes all of the perks that his seat as the crown prince brings.
Mhm. I also wanna see him get torn down a peg by that because right now all he knows is that everybody's gonna fall at my feet. I kind of hope he
Oh, yeah.
falls for her so that she can be like, "No, I got better things to be doing.
Tara, you are cruel.
I don't need to
You're
mess with you."
brutal.
Well, I did like her telling him that, like, "No."
I mean, it's probably the first time that he's ever heard the word no from
Well,
anyone
I
of the
mean,
opposite
minus
sex.
Rosamond.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was a yes for a long, long time. And then she was just like, you know what? I'm
"You're
going to
never
marry
gonna
this
marry
person.
me, so I'm gonna move on."
So they come up with a cover for Celaena because they don't want everyone to know that she is this notorious thief during the contest with these 23 other champions or warriors or whatever. So they call her Lilium the jewel thief from Belhaven, whose father was a wealthy merchant. And they're just like, really? How did that work out? She's like, well, he doesn't speak to me, if that's what you're wondering.
She is really
So,
good at the, like, lying on the spot,
oh,
like,
yeah.
super good at that,
Yeah.
and coming up with a backstory for any question that they ask them is plausible. I would be like, give me a minute." Like,
Yeah. She goes from whatever pre 8-year-old girl life she had to being assassin purse slave essentially to now being a jewel thief Lilium.
slave.
And so, yeah, during this entire contest, so she has to work out with all of these big buff men essentially. Was there another woman? I
No,
don't know if there was a woman.
no.
Yeah, she's the only woman, 18-year-old. So she has to get back into shape. She has been in these mines that have been very hard on her body. She is lacking nutrients. She's not healthy. She doesn't have any muscle mass. She needs to put weight on and kind of work up to what she used to be or
Well,
past
and
that.
even just the, like, getting her muscles back into fighting shape, not even just their mass, but, like, it takes a repetitive muscle memory to do some of the things that she is gonna be expected to do.
This is actually one of my favorite tropes to read in books, especially fantasy books. It's like I love dark academia settings where there's like some kind of magic school or just, people are very competitive with each other. And it's kind of the same thing with this. It's just a school of hard knocks who are expected to just duke it out and, last man standing gets to be the champion of the empire essentially. And so they start just training like it's straight up boot camp. And they're like, you know what? We're going to go running and you're just going to run the entire thing without working up to it. And she has a really fun time with that.
I would be like, "You know what? I'm out. Peace. I'll go back to the mines."
Be like, I'll lay on the ground, which I mean, she does. hide behind a tree to go vomit her guts out because she's not used to conditioning her body that way.
Well, and I understand her point because she was asked to kind of be like the middle tier of everything when they're competing, which the first competition was the race. So like whoever was last got kicked out or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So she was told to be like right in the middle. Like don't give away that you're badass, but also don't lose. Okay? Stay right in the middle. And she had a huge problem with that, which is maybe where a lot of people got annoyed and she was like arrogant because she was not happy with being told to stay in the middle because she knew she was better. And
Hmm.
I can understand her point. Like I also understand the like strategy of doing that because you don't want all these men to know that you could probably kick their ass in 5 seconds because then they're going to be coming for you as opposed to coming for each other. But I can also understand why she's a little pissed off every time she has to come in middle.
Yeah, I think her big frustration is okay, she's been independent and self sustaining like for pretty much her whole life at this point. Like she's had to figure out a way to survive. And so she has a hard time trusting her own welfare at the hands of other people. So it takes a lot for her to be like, okay, yeah, I trust your plan. It probably is for the best because logically it does make sense. You don't want to show everyone you're good when there's 23, murderers, whatever, people in the military. You don't want them all singling you out and all going
Hmm.
after you once to knock you out.
Well, and nobody's cared about her in the past. Like
No.
her father figure, the king of assassins, is the closest that she's had, and he wasn't in it for her. He was in it for what can I get out of you? One example of him just not giving a shit is that he thought that she wasn't doing so well with her left hand in some of the like sword fight and whatever. So he forced, or I guess he didn't really force her. He said, either you do it or I do it, but your hand's getting broke. And so she broke her own right hand so that she would have to learn how to do things with her left hand and be just as good at it as her right hand. So she's lived a life where nobody gave a crap except for what can you do for me?
Yeah, she's definitely a fighter. She has the scar still on her right hand to prove it. She has scars down her back from being whipped in the salt mines as a slave there. Like, you just get the sense that her body, her skin bears the marks of her entire life until this point.
I think this is in a later chapter, but we also get to see how she got those scars. And it is, like Sandra said, a whipping that she got on her first day there before she even like settled in or anything. They whipped her horribly, horribly. And at that time, she didn't know anybody in the mines, so she didn't have anybody to help her, didn't have anybody to do anything, and had to deal with that all on her own. But then the next morning, the little sweet lady gave her some medicine for her back and then promptly got raped and killed by
Yeah.
other people, which is why she went on a killing spree. The overseer that she killed when she lost it was the one that raped and killed her friend.
All the shit that they did to her day one, I mean, it was just a play to break her spirit from the get go, to send her a message that you are not getting out of this alive. This is your life. So squash any ideas that you have of getting out of here because you're not going to get out of here. And it's just horrible.
What it actually did was give her a reason because it pissed her off and she's like, you know what? You're all fucking gonna die.
But she's not like other people. We don't know yet what her life was like before, but she definitely does not respond to things in the usual way that works for everybody else for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I would respond the same way. Like, okay, you know what, you little fuckers, I'm gonna make sure you suffer just as much as I did.
I'd probably throw attitude and immediately get killed because I can't handle
I'd probably throw
physical
attitude,
things
but in my
happening to me.
head, I would be like, you know what, I'm gonna get you.
The rest of the chapters through 26 is basically her getting trained. She starts meeting with like the sword master. I think she's doing all kinds of combat and weapons training with him. And then she meets a princess, a foreign princess called Nehemia. And Nehemia is from a country called Ilwe, and she doesn't speak the common tongue here, but Celaena speaks it, which is, it just makes you even more curious about her background. Like, how does she know these random languages? And then she makes up the thing like, oh, the king of assassins had us learn this. what it was part of the education.
Which, I mean, could have been a truthful story because you would have to assume that if you're going in to murder people, you need to fit in. And what's
Hmm.
the best way to stand out?
Yes,
Not knowing anything
exactly.
about their culture. So it could have been
Yeah.
truthful, that part. But I also think it could have been something else.
And so some of the interactions with like with Celaena and Nehemia as they're going around, and we find out that Lady Caltaine Rompier has been giving Nehemia a tour. And when Celaena starts speaking Elway to Nehemia, Nehemia's just like, this freaking airhead is like giving me a tour of everything. I can't stand this place. She's like basically talking shit about everyone right in front of them and smiling. Just this beautiful, wide, natural smile the whole time.
Yes. And Kale's like, because he can understand a little bit, it seems. And
Yeah.
he's like,
No,
I feel like
he's like, what is she saying? Yeah.
that's not what she's saying.
Yeah, he starts getting worried. Like, what is she planning something? Like, okay, we need to squash this down. We need to stop this. He doesn't want it going anywhere.
He imagines a lot of threats, I think, that aren't really there. He's constantly like, well, we need to squash it. We need to squash it. We need to squash it.
So then we also learn a little bit more about Lady Caltaine Rompier, and we find out that she is being propositioned by Duke Parrington, who just seems like the slimiest, nastiest, like old man that is just always eyeing her body and just being very creepy and gross.
I feel like she kind of propositioned him too, though. Like, I mean, not sexually, because she doesn't, like, he's gross, but she went to his house to get him to invite her to the palace so that she could end up with Dorian. So, like, she's using him a little bit too. But he wants her for sex, and she wants him to introduce her to Dorian.
I'm not really clear how she met Duke Parrington, but she definitely caught his eye at some point. I don't know if she's getting pressured from her family or what the deal is, but yeah, she is essentially using him to get to Dorian or get closer to Dorian. And she knows that Parrington has it in his head that he wants to marry her, and she just tries to like brush it off and like, change the subject kind of thing all the time and just like grin and bear it, to just, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this until I can get into Dorian's favor and win his hand essentially, and then I can be like, "Oh, sorry, I'm engaged to the crown prince" type of thing. I don't know what her motivations are unclear at this point. Like we don't know
Hmm.
um
Why?
why.
You
Mhm.
You don't hear much about her family, which again goes to your point. I think that there might be something, which, I mean, if you look through history at any courtier, which is basically what she is, there's some family like pressure.
And Duke Parrington, honestly, he might be like a fallback option for her too, because he is held in very high regard by the king himself. I think he's probably the king's right hand man. Like they're very close. He's definitely not a good dude, and it's yet to be seen about why, like what his end game is. But it's obvious that he wants some kind of power or something. Strings of deaths start happening. Then it starts becoming kind of like a whodunit type of story because these mysterious murders start springing up.
And Kale, every single freaking time, is like, did you do this? Was this you? Like, this seems like you. Like, where were you? And she's like, I was fucking
Yeah.
with you, dumbass.
Yeah, he definitely shouldn't be a detective. Captain of the guard is probably okay, but he definitely shouldn't be like
He's not
an
catching on that it's
investigator.
not her.
No,
He's just got it in
no.
his
She's like,
head, got tunnel vision that, well, you're an assassin, so obviously you murdered everybody, right? Easiest possible solution.
dude, I've been in my room reading books the whole time, or so sore from training. It's like I wish it was me, but nope.
Well, and why would she do that? Like, you already know that she can beat them in a fair fight. Why is she going to go waste her time murdering them?
Like cheating her way up when she doesn't have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I could see it from some of the other ones that I'm not going to beat this dude. And the ones that are getting murdered are not like up there. You know, they're like the bottom tier competitors. So, like, why are you going to kill the person that's beneath you in competition? There's something else going on, Kale. Come on, use your brain.
Yeah, if it's the bottom ones that are the easiest to knock out the fair way during the competition, then you're right. There definitely is something going on that is not exactly related to the contest itself.
Well, and then the last one, which again, I'm like, are you a flippin' idiot? Come on, dude. The last one that we see in these chapters was basically eaten. Like half of him was eaten. Like, really? You think she somehow ate this dude, then went back to her room and didn't get blood anywhere?
Maybe she's not human, Tara. We
Weird.
already know she can kick ass.
Weird, dude. Weird. I mean, maybe she did it, I guess. I didn't catch on to that, but like, I don't think she did it. Maybe she is a cannibal.
So far, in the first 26 chapters, there is court intrigue and politicking going on. There
A
is
potential love
this
story.
contest. Yes, there's kind of like a love triangle going on. Chaol and Dorian are almost like brothers as much as their positions, allow them to be. They grew up together. And so we start seeing some jealousy start springing up between the two of them when it comes to Celaena. And Celaena's kind of like flirting with Dorian and he's watching her play pianoforte and learning more of her story and stuff. We hear this someone named Sam who is revealed that died. Something happened to him 13 months ago, and we know that at this point went to the salt mines. Yeah, so it's like we know that Sam was someone else that worked under the Assassin King.
And you also see Dorian getting a little bit jealous of Sam because
Mm-hmm.
before he knew that Sam died, like the scene with the piano, like she was playing this like haunting song and he walks in and he just stares at her for a little bit, which is again one of those cute little scenes, like very rom-com like movie.
It's like an Edward Cullen
Yeah, he's
thing.
just sitting there
Just
staring at
staring.
her play this piano and this haunting song. And he's like, "Oh, is that about a lover?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, kind of. It is." And he's like, "Oh, does he live in the palace?" Like he's jealous, right? And
Yeah.
she's like, "No, he's dead." And he's like, "Oh, sorry, my bad." Uh,
Awkward.
yeah, and then he feels bad about bringing up her dead ex-lover. I just found it cute that he was like, "Oh, he lives in the palace?" Because
Mm-hmm.
in his mind, I think he was thinking it was Kale. And he's like, "Is that fucker really moving in on you?" That's what I envisioned him thinking at that time when he was asking her. Because then you also see them like get into it and Kale telling him to like get out of her room and him saying, "Well, what about you? Why aren't you getting out of her room?" And it's like this bickering back and forth of like who deserves to be in her room. She's just like, "Would you both leave?"
In Sarah J Maas books, she'll write in holidays, like wintry season holidays, and like this one, Sam Hewen. I think I'm probably butchering that one. It's basically when the veil between the living and the dead is very thin, and so anything can happen, right? So there is a feast to celebrate the holiday. And of course, Celaena is not allowed to go. And she's pissed because Celaena feels like she should be able to go. She loves to get dressed up and go to fun festivities and stuff like that. And so she's upset that she can't go. And Dorian, of course, as the prince, is expected to go along with all of the royal family and all the courtiers. And Chaol is also in attendance there just to, be security. And so she is very frustrated. And then we hop into this trope of like the hidden part of the castle type of thing. Like you always see like magical library tropes or like a hidden castle type of thing. So then she discovers like a secret door. And what happens?
So she discovers the secret door, takes it, she gets her little candle, she's walking through it, and she sees like three tunnels. And so she takes the first one. I don't remember where the first one led, but
Yeah, I don't know.
it led to the outside, didn't it? Like it led to an escape path, basically. And then the second one led to some sarcophagi. Is that
Yeah, like a
the
tomb.
plural ones of those? Sarcophagus? She's like, "Wait, these people look very familiar. Like one of them's got elfin ears." And she's like, "But that doesn't make sense that there's an elfin person here. The only person that has ever been elfin that married into this royal family was the first queen." And then she's like, "Wait a fucking minute. This is the like tombs of the first king and queen of Otterlin." And we find some backstory that the queen was also the princess of Tera, who is the elfin, I'm guessing, country.
Yeah.
And so she is like, wait a damn minute here. And that's kind of where we get to there. And she like leaves and she's like, why are these people not like respecting their ancestors? Why is nobody
Yeah.
here? Like, why are these tombs here? Kind of a thing. But then she figures out that she better get back to her room before somebody notices she's gone and then notices that the door is open and blah, blah, blah. And I think it's before this that she sees, no, I don't remember where it was in the chapter, but she like ends up walking above where the feast is happening and she notices that all of the other competitors are there and she's the only person in the castle not there. And then she sees Chaol like get up to leave and she's like, shit, I better get back to my room because I don't want him thinking I've found an escape. Because she's decided that she's going to stay there a little longer for her to get provisions and things so that when she does make her escape, she can really escape. And so she goes back to her room for a little while and he comes in with this little ring.
Yeah, a ring that all of the guests received.
And
Mm-hmm.
so he gives it to her. And she falls asleep and she has a dream that she ends up back in that tunnel. And now the queen is talking to her and telling her that she has a very important task and there's an evil in this castle and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And she's the only one that can stop it. And the queen gives her another ring or a coin or something to keep her safe, right?
It's an amulet of some kind. We don't know what it does or what it means, but it will keep her safe.
Like kind of sends her back to her room, basically. And then she hears like yelling and growling or something in the like tunnels as she's running back to her room.
Yeah.
And then we discover that there had been another death. And this is the dude who was half eaten. And in her mind, she's like, well, I did hear some growling. I did hear some. Maybe that's what got this guy.
Yeah, but she can't say exactly how she came about that because she wants to keep it a secret. So we see how calculating she is by like, okay, I know about these hidden passageways. I could escape right now, but
That's not
I
the
want to
smart
see a
decision.
little bit more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then dumbass Kale comes and he's like, did you murder somebody? Where were you? And she's like, I was with you. Like, you came in my room. You saw me here. Like, what do you mean? Where was I? And she plays him a little bit there too, because he's like, well, maybe the king. And she's like, yeah, I bet the king will be interested in hearing about your time in my room last night. And so he stops questioning her a little bit there, which I thought was a nice way of
Yes.
turning that on its head of like, yeah, you can blame me all you want, but that doesn't mean it's the truth. Like, you were here.
This whole Sam Hewen festivity night is just, it's kind of an interesting scene because so much is happening. So it's like on one hand, she's locked in her room, can't leave. She's figuring out about a hidden passageway, being told by this spirit or something in her dream of the late Queen Elena, who was married to King Gavin, that there is an evil in the castle and she needs to put an end to it. And then the amulet that keeps her safe. Doesn't Queen Elena like describe the guardians around the courtyard, like the
Mm-hmm.
watchtower or something? Like
Yeah,
she
the
starts talking
gargoyles.
about the word. Mm-hmm. So we're starting to like learn a little bit more about what these word marks are. We just know that they do some kind of magic or power, and it's pretty much up to Celaena to figure out what's going on, stop the evil, whatever that evil is. Maybe it's multiple things. But then we have like Chaol kind of being romantic with her with that ring. And then doesn't like Dorian find
Yeah,
Chaol
yeah.
like in the room and it's just like, what the hell are you
And
doing
Kale's
here? And
like,
they're
well, what
trying
are
to be
you doing?
quiet. And she's pretending to be like asleep the whole time. Like her face is all flushed from rushing, back. And she's just like pretending to
Like,
be
I'm
passed
asleep, I
out. And
promise.
and they're just being territorial and weird
Yeah,
about it.
because Kale's
And
like, why are you here? She's an assassin, like, all talking bad. And he's like, well, if she's so bad, why are you here? She's asleep. It's like, there's no reason for you to need to guard her.
And so by the time we reach the end of chapter 26, the first part of our reading for the read along, things seem a bit tarnished between Dorian and Chaol because they're kind of losing trust in each other. They're very jealous of each other and they're not handling it well at all. And there's just a lot of possessiveness and inadequacy going on. And then that's like pretty much it. There's like another death at I think this happened like right before, like Xavier, I think. Xavier
He's
who
the one that
died
was
like during
eaten.
the. Okay, he was the one that was eaten, like ripped open, like alien
Well,
style or
and he
something.
wasn't
And
like when they first described it, they said like half eaten. And so I was thinking like the lower part of his body or the upper part of his body. But like when they re-described it, his like chest cavity had been ripped open and his heart and his lungs had been taken out, and then his brain had been taken out. So like somebody's looking for like vital organs.
And we see Kane, who's the big motherfucker from the military
Hmm.
or whatever, who is in
And
this
he got kicked
contest of
out of the
champions.
military. And she was like, "You had to have
Yes.
done something pretty bad to get kicked out of the like military because they're a bunch of assholes."
They were bad. And he's just all around just a very suspicious character anyways. Like he's enormous. I'm picturing like the guy from Troy that Brad Pitt has to fight at the very beginning, and he
Ajax.
just basically jumps in the air and kills him. Yeah. And so I'm just picturing this massive hulk of a man, and he's big, but he's fast, he's strong, he's very suspicious in his behavior. Like why is he out and about?
Well, and doesn't he come from the mountain people that were known to have like
Yes.
eaten people or something? Like there was
Something like
something to
that.
do with
Yeah.
like their people and like why they were like, eh.
But it's almost like a red herring,
Hmm.
like sprinkled in there to kind of
Well,
take you off
and
track.
the other thing that I don't know if it was red herring or not, but like when she walked up on him, he was either writing or reading one of those what are they called?
Oh, the word
Hmm.
marks.
So I'm like, was he writing that? Or was he
Yeah, is
reading
like this some
it?
kind of
Or was he trying to get rid of it? What was going on?
there's some kind of ritual happening,
Hmm.
it would appear. And so that is what we're going to find out when we read the next half of the book.
Yeah.
So, do we want to just kind of go through characters? Like, we've already talked about characters throughout, like Celaena and why she is the way she is, and Chaol, why he's like a holier than thou type of
Well, we didn't
mentality.
actually tell why he was, because he is actually the first in line
Yes,
to,
his estate.
yeah, it's not really a kingdom, but it's kind of like nowadays a dukedom ish.
He's a lord.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so he is a highborn person who gave up his title.
To be captain. He
Um,
wanted to be captain. Yeah.
and so he does have that I'm better than you, I'm a peer of the society or whatever mentality to
Yeah.
him.
We do get some sympathy for him because in abdicating his title of lord of his home, and giving it to his little brother, like his father basically
Disowned him.
excommunicates him. He just won't engage with him whatsoever. So he doesn't have the best relationship with his family. He probably is not welcome home anymore. So this is it. Like this job as captain of the palace guard, like that is his identity. And it's going to be really interesting to see how his sense of honor and all of this gets changed as the story goes along. Dorian, we've already talked about how he's just a black sheep, but I don't know, he's just such a fun character. I love reading Dorian
Hmm.
POV. Like,
He does seem like he's like the type of person that's, oh well, go with the flow, happy go lucky kind of a mentality, or at
yeah,
least he seems that way. Maybe he's got something else brewing underneath, but he seems like he's just constantly winking at people and blowing kisses almost kind of thing.
it got me whenever he burned that list of suitor names essentially that his mother gave him at the party. He's just like, whatever, just, I don't want it. He can't stop thinking about Celaena and how she was playing, the music and all of this stuff. And he's just like very much fixated on her right now. So it's like, okay, does he genuinely like her? Or is this Dorian being Dorian? Someone new catches his eye
Yeah.
at court and he's like all of a sudden about that. You know what I mean?
But Nehemia is also at court. And he's also had equal time to want her, and he hasn't. Because even Celaena like set them up a little bit because she was sparring with Nehemia, and
That's right.
Dorian
Yeah.
comes in and gets upset and he's like, "Why aren't you doing anything?" to Chaol, and Chaol's like they're them. And so she sets him up to then be the sparring partner. Like, if you don't want me doing it, then you do it, kind of a thing. He spars with her for a little bit and then nothing. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm leaning more towards he actually
Could they
likes her.
communicate?
N-
Did they have a language
Well,
barrier at all, or
they
is she just
did because
able
he
to?
doesn't
Okay.
speak it, and she was talking to Celaena, and they were, like, going off on him, and that's the point where Dorian's like, "You could have helped me out," to Chaol, and Chaol's like, "That wasn't even that bad," of them ganging up, and talking to each other in the language, and then coming back and, it was just a funny scene where she found her person to, like, I don't know, her best friend to be like, yeah, we can take him, even if it's just verbally."
Yeah, I love Nehemia. I feel like this is the first glimmer of light that Celaena has genuinely experienced because she finally has a friend, like another woman around that she just instantly bonds with. They're both like very well read, intelligent women. She just, for some reason, she connects with her and relates to her.
And they're very
And
sarcastic together, like, they
mm-hmm.
if they had grown up together, like, as kids, I could see them playing pranks throughout the palace and stuff.
Showing up the boys,
Yeah, I
talking
could
shit about everybody else at court.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody understands because they can only piece together 2 of the 5 words I just said.
This is like one of the things that I think you're gonna enjoy so much about this series and even the other Mass series is just the friendship and fellowship that she writes. Like it gets better and better, and it's so much fun to read. Okay, so Nehemia, Chaol, Dorian, his shitty little brother Holland, his absent mother Georgina,
His
talked
father
about Rompier, the king. He just seems very, I
Well,
don't
and
know.
he's suspiciously missing during this time too. Like, he left the palace, which did he really leave? Like, is he the person murdering these people? Did he bring them to the palace for this competition just so he could murder people and get people to die? It seems plausible with his personality that he's just like, these people suck. Let's just bring them. Let's tell them it's a competition, but I really just want people to
Yeah,
die. It's kind of like Hunger
yeah.
Games. Like, they just got sent there to die.
It's going to be so fun to try and figure out what his deal is because we know absolutely nothing about him. We get very little page time with him. And the fact that he outlawed magic 10 years before, he's in cahoots with like people like Duke Parrington. Now he's running this champion contest. For some reason, it's like, what is his thing? He's already head of this empire. Like, what else is there that he wants?
Well, and
You
we
know?
also do hear from Dorian that he has disappeared like this one other time. And I would be very
Mm,
interesting to see what happened during that other time. If
good
similar
catch.
things happened, I foresee something being going on with
Yeah,
the king.
that's a good catch. You're gonna find this thread line, this plot super rewarding.
Yeah.
Ooh, I can't wait. Any other characters that were there that we didn't really talk about? There's like Nox, who's kind of her
Oh,
friend during
yes.
this
I
the
love Knox.
competition.
Like, I want it to be like him and her. Like, I want them to end up together. I think, and I'm not going to say I'm shipping him, but I do like Knox. I think he is very on her level. He's an assassin
hmm
too, but from the very beginning, he like was making eyes at her and he was the first person to like be like hi to her being the only girl in the competition. He was the only one to acknowledge her existence when they all met. And then like he wanted to spar with her to help her. You just see this like budding thing, and then there's the scene where Grave, dumbass, deserves to die, cut Nox's rope during the like wall climbing challenge. So Nox is over here falling to his death, and she gets a rope from some other dude and she's like, "You touch it and I will kill you." And like goes to like save him. And in the process of doing that, she like had to shimmy down where she was, which was in the lead, basically. She had to shimmy down this little drain pipe, cutting her feet the whole way down, and then jump to like swing to catch him as he's falling. And then motherfucker had to climb back up the wall to get to the top so that she didn't lose the like whole challenge.
Yeah.
That's again her caring nature because she could have just been like, you know what, one less person for me to worry about, but she didn't.
Nox gets my instant respect for like a couple of reasons because as you said, he definitely has some kind of sixth sense or intuition about people, and obviously he gravitated to her, and he then was very strategic in smart as in, okay, he had the foresight to know that if I'm going to survive this competition, I need to form some kind of alliance with somebody. So he had that kind of sense about her, and then to know that, okay, no, I'll be like your partner, your buddy in this, and we're in this together. Is he the one with the poison talent? Is that his
No,
talent?
I think
Is
that's
poisons?
Peller, or however you say that, the littler assassin, because he can't
Oh
do
yeah, the
very
young
much
one.
else.
Yeah.
But he's
Yeah.
like, I'm a lot better with my poisons. But I may be paranoid here with Knox because he's an assassin. But like, what if the king assassin sent him in so that he could help her? Because she did mention that she wondered if he knew that she was out of the salt mines. And if he was, she thought he would come and try and get her. So
Yeah.
maybe the king assassin does know where his assassins are. I may be reading too much into that, but like, I feel like if I were the king of assassins in this country, I would put them where I wanted them to do, you know? Like, I'd put them where I'd want them.
It just seems like she has a lot of just internal confusion about how she ended up there and doesn't have any idea what's going on outside of this
Well,
place
and you
with
do
the
hear
Assassin King.
that she was set up and that's how she got captured, but she doesn't know who she was set up by. So she also has this internal struggle of who can I trust? Because everybody I've ever known has let me down in some way. Like they've either not cared, I've been set up, I'm on my own, basically. Because everybody else kind of just fucking sucks. But then she still has a big heart where she's helping others.
Yeah, I remember the first time I read Throne of Glass, I was just like, what the hell went happen? Like, what happened? Because the way everyone talks about her, she is the best assassin, like, ever. So that means that she must, like, the king of assassins must value her and, like, want her, like, back, you know, in his, on his team or whatever. He needs to repossess her, and she doesn't know, like, as you said, he doesn't know where I am, anything like that. And so that's a really good take that you have about Nox.
I think he does know where she is.
You think
I think
so?
he's kept up with where she was. Like, it's not like she was moving a whole lot from the salt mines.
No.
I think he does.
Ships. The first time I read this, I was shipping Nox and Celaena and Dorian. And I mean, okay, all of them at some point, but like Dorian's my favorite. And then I also just, there's something
There's something with
really sweet and
Knox.
kind about Nox.
For her future life and what we know of her currently, I think that there's more of her that we don't know. So this may change my ship. But what we know of her currently, I think Knox is a better suit for her. And so I think right now I'm shipping him more. I like her interactions with Kale. Like I just absolutely adore her like feistiness with him and his feistiness with her. But I don't think that they would ultimately make the best couple. And then Dorian I like, but he's just too much of a like playboy. Like I think at a certain point she'd be like, "You know what? Fuck off."
Yeah, you want his heart broken. You
Like
want her to like shut his shit down.
Like, she is so, I don't want to say serious because she's not super serious all the time, but her life has driven her to be more serious. And he is not. He is not to that stage of life. He's like the 20-year-old man who just wants to play. He's not the 30-year-old man who's ready to settle down. Where she is, she's never got to be that 20-year-old. She's like, you know what? I'm hardcore. Like, you're it. And even you see that with Sam. Like, she was 16 at the time, and it was still like a serious relationship, not like a puppy love kind of a thing. And so I don't think her and Dorian are right for each other right now. Like maybe he'll grow up a little bit and then
Yeah.
they can be on the same page. But like right now, I think it's just asking for the
Yeah.
heartbreak because they're not on the same
Yeah.
page. Which I'm okay with him being knocked down a peg or two. I want her to see happiness because she's been through it.
And for the viewers out there who are listening in and we're talking about Sam because we don't really have all that much knowledge about Sam at this point, we are, if this is your first time tuning in, we are reading the series from Throne of Glass to Crown of Midnight to Heir of Fire, and then going to the Assassin's Blade collection of novellas or short stories. So that's, if you were to line up the series with the Assassin's Blade first, that would be chronological order, right? But that's not how Sarah J Maas released the books. initially. So we are reading from Throne of Glass, so we don't really know anything about Sam. We're very much in the dark with Sam, so we will get to that as our fourth book that we cover, and that's just for like more of the context and more emotional impact, and just for all of it to kind of click into place, feeling like, oh my god. And so that's why we are reading the series in this way. So I just had to put that disclaimer out there because a lot of people get confused about the reading order. So
Well, yeah, when I bought the box set, Assassin's Blade was the first book in the box set. And I was like, well, why are we reading the second book first?
I didn't even read the Assassin's Blade, my first read through, until I finished Kingdom of Ash, and then I read it, and I was like crying.
Well, that doesn't sound nice.
We like the pain. We like the pain.
We like the pain for other
Um,
people, okay? I'm not a masochist.
Favorite scenes or quotes? I think you've already mentioned a couple, like the stars were staring at her, not the other way around.
Yeah, I like the very sweet scenes, like the piano scene was super sweet, but
Mm-hmm.
then I also like the scenes where she's just feisty, like her and Nehemia together when they know the other person can't understand them and they're just like, yeah, she's an idiot. Yeah, he's an idiot. Yeah. And then especially with Kale, because he's trying so hard to figure out what they're saying because he just knows she's up to no good. And
Yeah.
so he's trying to figure it out and she just like plays him. I love those scenes too.
Yeah. Any written correspondence between people, I always love it. Like tugs at my heartstrings. I love that kind of rom com stuff.
Well, even in those
And
letters, it was a very snarky,
mm-hmm.
like, you should let me read these because, well, like she was just
Yeah,
snarky to him. And like, it's like those videos of like, how do I say this in a professional way? That's what she did to him. She's like, give me the fucking books, but in a professional
yeah,
way.
yeah, in a nice, polite, courteous way. Dorian, this kind of ties into, I don't know what scene exactly it was, but it was kind of, he seems to like look at Celaena a lot, just observe her when she's not paying attention or doesn't know he's there. He seems to observe her a lot, and he's had the thought at least once or twice, like he feels like he knows her. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
he knows her from somewhere. So it's almost like, is there a soul connection going on between the two of them? Like, what is this? And so it's a little bit of that. Yeah.
We don't know anything about her young years either.
True.
So,
Mm-hmm.
does he know her?
Tera, guys.
Does he? And he knows her as a little kid. Like maybe they were playmates when they were like really small and he's like pulling in like this is a kindred spirit. Like I know her.
You don't know yet, but we will see. That's a good segue into our last part, which is predictions. Is there anything that you think is going to happen this last half of the book?
Well shit, I don't know about the last half of the book. I know in general, like I mean, I think she's gonna win the competition. Like I don't think there's any way in hell she's not gonna win. Um
Yeah, that's fair.
I think we're going to learn more about her connection to Dorian because there is a connection in some way, I think. I think we're going to learn more about her connection to Elena because there's a connection in some way. And I think we're going to learn more about her connection to magic because there's a connection in some way. Those are three things I think we are going to learn about.
Do you think the string of murders get solved this book?
I don't know about this book.
Yeah,
I think it would.
depending on what's driving it, right?
Yeah, I think we would have to find out an answer to then lead into Crown of Midnight because Crown of Midnight just implies something's happening with the ruler. And it's Crown of Midnight, which we have not heard anybody else be called. So it's not like Prince Dorian is
The
like the
only
Crown of
crowns.
Midnight, you know? Like, so it
Yeah,
has to be somebody new being pulled in because Nehemia wasn't referred to in any way midnighty, and neither was Dorian. So I'd have to assume that the Crown of Midnight would be something different. I mean, I could be way off, and I will find out, but
so there you have it. That is our very casual discussion of the first 26 chapters of Book 1 in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J Maas. I mean, Throne of Glass. Look at our beautiful Celaena on the cover. So happy Valentine's Day. Quick reminder that the new book covers by Bloomsbury Publishing came out today. So those are available. Links will be down in the description box below if you want to see the US covers for those. But yeah, what did you think? I guess just overall, Tara, what are your thoughts on the series or the writing so far?
so far I'm liking it. The chapters flowed really well. Like,
Mhm.
I didn't feel like I was like, "Oh god, let it end anytime soon." Anything like that. It was like by the time I got to the end of the chapter, I'm like, "Oh, that's the whole chapter? Okay. This doesn't."
Oh, yeah, they're
Because
snappy.
at first I was like, "I have to read 26 chapters? Sandra, what are you doing to me? Like, this is gonna take freaking forever." But it flowed. And by the time
Mhm.
you got like there was something else big happening. So there weren't
Mhm.
any like really boring times where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, like you were trying to piece together, like, what did that mean? Like, I feel like that was foreshadowing something. What did it mean?
She definitely writes in a way that you keep turning the page. They're quick chapters. She keeps leaving you wanting more. It's definitely a different experience than From Blood and Ash,
I feel
like
like
those books.
I missed some things because I was too caught up with, oh, well, this happened here. Like, and I was in my mind, like, the like things were rolling, like, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? And I'm still reading, and I probably like just did not pay attention to sections of the book because I'm trying to figure out what the last thing meant. But I think it was really good. It did not take me as long as I thought it would. I don't think I'm super invested in a relationship yet, though.
Tara's still standing back, observing the field to see
Yes.
who the one is.
Normally, I'm like, "Ooh, that dude's hot." Like, I like him. But right now, I'm like, there are a few.
Tara's first thing that she told me reading this series was like a very fun comment about Dorian because, everyone likes Dorian at first because he's so playful.
Mhm.
And then followed by like the next day or 2 days after talking about Chaol's gruffness with her,
Mhm.
being all about that.
I didn't send you a text about Knox, though, and he's up there on my list too, so
I like Knox for sure.
but yeah, I haven't decided, and usually, if you've ever listened to any of our podcasts before, I am the person that, like, horns in on the dude. Like, "Ooh, he's hot. I like him."
Horns in.
Yes, I like this.
David, hashtag scared and horny. Let's make it a thing again.
I'm not there. I'm not there yet. I'm also not scared.
Yeah, that's not going to come until like book 3-ish, maybe 4. Book 3, I think, is like when it starts getting a little bit older, like new adult
A little bit
territory.
spicy, guys.
A little spicy,
And
a little smutty.
I've already determined when we get to that point, we need to have David along because I cannot stress this enough how funny that would be if he has to read these spicy scenes and tell us what he thinks about them.
But just the spicy scenes, like nothing
Yes.
else. So he has zero context of what's happening
Yes.
outside of these smutty scenes. So
Yes.
yeah, I agree. Anywho, we hope you enjoyed this rambling discussion between Tara and I. And we are way past time. And we will see you back on what's a week from today? February 21st?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
23 for the second half of Throne of Glass discussion. So, okay, thanks for tuning in.
Bye, guys.
Bye.